Our film starts with a ghoulish-looking vampire talking to his father. He is angry about his brother being chosen for some type of ritual involving something called the Bloodstone over him. His father tells him basically he's evil and the stone would give him too much power, which is why he was not chosen, and then traps him in a cage. The vampire then cuts off his finger, which then turns into tiny demons, who then lets him out of the cage, allowing the vampire to murder his father with a dagger. Elsewhere, we see two American women get off a train, excitedly met by a blonde French woman. The French woman tells the two girls there are no hotels, so they're instead going to stay at an old fortress. They get to the fortress where they're met by a creepy caretaker named Carl. The girls talk about how excited they are as they study Transylvanian history. They get a quick tour where the caretaker talks about the connection of the fortress to Dracula. They're then told there's a festival coming up that celebrates the history of the villagers' belief that vampires are killing people. After one of the blondes finds an area with a bunch of coffins, they head to the dining hall to eat. Back with the vampire whose name is Radu, he tells his demons to get him the Bloodstone, and we see him drink from it. After the girls do a bunch of sightseeing, they decide to take pictures in front of Castle Vladislas, which is where Radu is. The one girl, Lydia, decides she wants to go in and begins trying to manipulate the door and gets cut in the process. They leave just before Radu gets to the door, and we see him smile as they walk away. When the girls get back, Michelle, the brunette, decides to look into the castle to see why no one talks of it, and then they are joined by a dark, brooding stranger named Stefan. Lillian introduces herself, Mara, and Michelle, and once he leaves, Lillian mocks Michelle for lusting after the guy. We then get the girls getting a story from an old woman who tells them that vampires exist in the area, so they should stay away from the ruins. Being a horror movie, that means Lillian gets excited and they spend more time at the place that they're told not to go to. They end up accidentally falling asleep outside the castle, but wake up at dusk just in time to leave before Radu gets to them. They decide to take a shortcut through the woods like all smart people do and freak out as they hear noises. Michelle thinks it's an animal, but we see it's Radu and his demons and they run. They're then saved by Stefan. Stefan takes them back to the fortress. He then heads to the castle where we find out that he is Radu's brother when he finds the dead body of who we now know is his father as well. Radu grabs him and mocks him and their father for sympathizing with humans. That night, Radu heads to the fortress where we see Lillian and her bloody arm. He then feeds on her arm as we see Stefan head back to the caretaker and let him know that the king, aka his and Radu's father, is dead. Stefan and the caretaker head to Lillian's room, but don't get there before Radu bites her on the neck. Stefan heads back to the castle, not paying attention to the time, and Radu taunts him with the Bloodstone while pointing out that he's too far away from the castle to make it before the sun comes up. The caretaker arrives just in time with a coffin and retrieves Stefan. Stefan tells Carl that he must destroy Radu. We then get a montage of Carl making weapons. Back with the girls, Lillian is now very sick and a doctor is there to see her. He diagnoses her with anemia and notices the bruises on her arm where she got scratched. He gives her some medicine and tells her to stay in bed. The girls want to cancel their research trip to the local festival, but Lillian tells them she'll be fine by herself. Back with Carl, Stefan tells him to make sure the girls are gone before the next day. Carl realizes Stefan is in love with Michelle, and they give a cryptic statement that she has his mother's eyes. Michelle and Mara head to the festival where Mara explains to us what all the dancing is. I like Mara as this film is super confusing without her explaining that spooky stuff could happen, and otherwise it's just a girl's vacation trip. Stefan then shows up, and one of the village women tells him to go away. He instead decides to practically hump Michelle in public while also stating he's worried about her. Michelle then tells Mara that she's worried about Lillian and wants to take the car to check on her, instead of, they all go back together if there's a threat. She takes off and we see Radu attack one of the village women. Mara left behind to take pictures is then attacked by Radu as well. When Michelle gets back to the fortress, she catches Radu feeding on Lillian. Stefan and Carl then arrive right behind her and Radu takes off in the shadows. Stefan then tells Michelle his weird backstory where Radu is the offspring of his father and an evil sorceress, making him his half-brother as his mother was human. They check on Lillian, who is barely alive, and Stefan tells Michelle that they need to go first thing in the morning to save themselves. She, being the stubborn horror movie female she is, says, "No, that's cool. I'm going to stick around and be a target because that will help." Back with Radu, he has Mara chained up and leaves his tiny stop-motion demons to watch her. The next morning, Michelle finds Lillian dead. Carl comes in with the doctor and tells her he couldn't find Mara, and the villagers are all afraid as they found the dead village woman's body. The doctor tells them blood poisoning was Lillian's cause of death. They then see the villagers transporting the old woman's body. Carl told her that they decapitated her and drove a stake through her heart. He then says they have to bury Lillian in secret if she doesn't want the same thing to happen to her, which they then do, at the castle, where the vampire lives. Not sure about the logic here, as Carl is fully aware of what will happen. Anyway, Carl tries to talk Michelle into leaving, and she once again says nope, not until she finds Mara. You know, the one she left alone. She then says they can help Stefan by destroying Radu during the day. They head into where they think Radu is laying, but when they open the coffin, he's not there. That night we see Radu head outside to Lillian's grave as we then watch her rise, fangs out. Stefan then has Carl hide Michelle at a church, letting her know that a vampire can't enter a house of God without an invitation. He will then leave to destroy Radu. When he gets there, he sees Mara tied up, which distracts him long enough for the demons to drop a net on him. Back at the church, Lillian does the whole, hey, it's perfectly safe to let me in even though I was super dead the last time you saw me thing. Michelle, being the rocket scientist she is in this film, runs out of the church and gets herself kidnapped. We then see her tied up across from Mara. She finds a way to pry the chains from the old brick to free herself and Mara, and takes her into another room where Mara starts to freak out. Michelle tries to get her to calm down, but Mara then fangs out. Michelle runs away, but unfortunately right into the arms of Lillian. Lillian and Mara apparently change all their clothes and take Michelle to a room where Stefan is hung up. Radu tells him that he wants to feed on her while Stefan watches. He drinks from the Bloodstone and then feeds on her in the most slow, drawn-out way possible. Carl then walks in somehow too late, even though Radu took forever. Mara goes to attack, and he shoots her twice with a shotgun, killing her. He frees Michelle and Stefan before being attacked by Lillian. Stefan and Radu have a sword fight, and then Michelle finds a torch to defend herself from Lillian as she takes Carl out. Stefan saves Michelle by cutting down a chandelier, making it fall on Lillian. He then impales Radu with a flaming piece of wood. Radu says nothing can destroy him, but Stefan, not caring, cuts his head off with an axe. Meanwhile, Lillian begs for her life, causing Michelle to hold back from staking her. Carl then recovers and cuts her head off. The film ends with Stefan and Michelle kissing and her begging him to make her like him so she doesn't end up like Radu. Stefan bites her and places her into a coffin. We then see the butts of the demons while Radu's head wakes up. I can't wait to find out what's next for the couple of Stefan and Michelle, except we don't, as Stefan is never heard from again, and becoming a vampire is going to make Michelle look like this from this point on. Thanks for watching. If you like these recaps, please leave a like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to know every time I update. There is now an option to be a channel member where you'll get access to exclusive recaps from late night vampire catalogs like Showtime, Cinemax After Dark, USA Up All Night, and much more. If you want to help my channel grow, please check out my Patreon, where members can get exclusive content that can't be uploaded on YouTube, along with download options. Link is in the description.